Hey everyone, welcome back to another week with the Startup Junkies podcast. We're here with some really great people on a Friday drinking some beer and having a good time. From the Startup Junkies side, we have the man, the myth, the legend, Jeff Amaron. Say hi, Jeff.
Hey, Matthew, how are you? Happy Friday.
Oh, living the dream. It's Friday, so. And we have the magician of marketing behind Startup Junkie, Caleb Talley. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. I didn't know I was a magician, but I'll take it.
Middle
And,
name of Houdini, huh?
and today we have a very special guest on. Her name is Stacie. I went to the jury, and she is the creator and founder of Gingiber. How are you doing? And could you tell us a little about your story?
Sure. Yeah, I'm doing great. I actually just finished a live call with my students for an online course that I'm running right now. I'm teaching about 500 aspiring creatives how to launch their own creative businesses. And so I literally just finished that call right before I hopped on here, which is pretty nuts. Gosh, what do you want to know? I'm an illustrator by trade. I design and produce products, and I've been doing that for 11 years. I started out really because I had my first child and I couldn't find artwork for her nursery. So I kind of dipped my toe into nursery decor, quickly found an audience online with my illustrations. And then I realized that people who didn't have kids liked my artwork too. So I realized I could really expand my product offerings. So I started developing stationery and kitchenwares and selling these items direct to customer. And then I started picking up steam wholesale and selling to stores all over the world. Then I kind of accidentally found my way into art licensing, which is where bigger companies will pay me to use my art on their products. So I started designing for Crate and Barrel and West Elm and all the dream clients that I ever could have imagined I got to work with pretty much. And that leads me to this has been slowly over 11 years. And then this year I decided to take all the information that I had learned and launch an online training program to help people who I wish I'd had this class 11 years ago. I wish that when I just was a creative with a dream, that I had someone to walk me through everything from building a portfolio to online marketing to how to actually find partnerships with great licensing agents and manufacturers. And so I created the course that I wish I'd had 11 years ago.
That's great. What led you to being an artist?
Oh gosh, my earliest memories of drawing puppy dogs. That's literally all I did when I was a child. I just knew that I would be an artist, either that or a professional softball player, because I watched A League of Their Own too many times. And that didn't work out. So I went to college at Drury University in Springfield, Missouri. That's not too far away. And I studied graphic design and fine arts. It was like kind of a double major. And like most people with an art degree, I became a coffee shop barista and used my degree in no way at all for a while. And I worked at Starbucks, actually. That's what brought me to Northwest Arkansas. I was in management at Starbucks, and I transferred from Springfield to Fayetteville. And around that time, I was pregnant with my first child. My husband was a graduate student at the U of A. And I was ready to kind of try to dip my toe back into the creative world and see if I could find a place to use my artwork, frankly.
Seems like a lot of good entrepreneurs don't intend to create a business. They just see a need like you did and filled it. When was that moment, I guess, that you realized that you were doing this for your daughter's nursery, and then you realized, this could be a business?
Well, gosh, I think at first I put my artwork online on a platform called Etsy, which I'm not on anymore, but back 11 years ago, it was a much smaller platform. It was much easier for creatives to kind of launch a career on there. And the first time I got featured on a prominent blog, it was like a decorating blog. A blog post went up. I didn't know I was going to be featured on it. And instantly I just had cha-ching, 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 cha-ching. And my little app on my phone just kept going off. And I was like, what's happening? People are buying my work. And I realized that I had an opportunity to maybe make this into a real business and not just like a hobby, right? Yeah. So that's kind of was the big aha moment. And then 2 years after that, Etsy themselves actually featured me on their website on Black Friday. They wanted me to do like a featured interview. And they warned me, they're like, okay, just be prepared. Most people who are featured on our blog they have an influx in business. And when they wrote to me, they're like, can you be featured? Just be prepared. I was like, sure, absolutely I can. But I didn't tell them I was actually due with my second child the same weekend that feature was going live. And my husband's like, you can't do this. And I'm like, Etsy needs me. I need to be on there. I need to be on their website. And so my daughter ended up coming 2 weeks early. And so there I was with a 2-week-old in my lap, and this feature goes live. And I sold more in a week than I had in the previous 3 years combined. And so I was like, all right, I'm not going back to my side job over here. I'm just going to do this completely full time. And that's what I did.
And the rest is history, so they say, right?
I guess. Yeah. Or whatever this is that we're doing right now. The rest is just constantly pivoting to try to keep making
talk about that a little bit. I know you've transitioned a business a few different times, and you were in our Scale Up program a while back, and so now you're faced with this sort of black swan event that the whole world's dealing with. How did you react to it? I think the moves you made are going to be really instructive to the audience.
Oh, thank you. Well, so here's where I'm going to set it up. In January, we had just gone to New York Now, which is a prominent trade show where you can take your gift items and sell them wholesale. And we had our best show we'd ever had. I mean, we had been strategically building up our wholesale business for years, where this was the year that we were really poised to explode. So we literally get back from New York and people are talking about COVID-19, but no one has done anything yet. And all of a sudden, everything kind of explodes and retailers shut down, and every single purchase order that we wrote at that show was canceled. I mean, wow. We invested about, for a small business, investing $20,000 to go to a trade show is a lot of money. So we put a lot of money into it. And then we just, not only did we lose that investment, but we lost every purchase order. And, projecting out into our most profitable quarters, we didn't see when this was going to end. And I have a team of employees in Springdale, and I realized I've got to do something. So the first thing we did is we moved to online platform of our workshop. So like I mentioned, we have a workshop in Springdale, Arkansas, where we were teaching people just things like embroidery and watercolor. So we pivoted and we filmed just on our own. We never filmed classes before, and moved our workshops online. So that was the first thing that we did. The second thing we did is I was sitting on a ton of greeting cards because I had just signed with the biggest retailer we'd ever signed with, and they canceled their purchase order, but I had just produced thousands and thousands of greeting cards for them. So I launched a pen pal program online with social media, where I matched up my social media followers who signed up. They paid me for cards and a pen pal. We created an entire program that kind of exploded, frankly, and we were unprepared for how many people in a time of isolation were really excited to connect with each other. So that's how I moved through a bunch of greeting cards that I was sitting on. And gosh, I did a bunch of things. The biggest thing I did, though, was this big core program. I was already planning on launching this 8-week in-depth training program called Leverage Your Art into a Creative Career. So Leverage Your Art for short. And I realized that, oh gosh, this is going to be a really hard time to launch something expensive. So it's an expensive course in terms of someone who usually sells $4.50 greeting cards, okay, to then be selling an 8-week in-depth training course. People are struggling right now. They're being laid off. They, what if they don't want to pay for a course? But at the same time, there are a lot of people who are looking to pivot and really go after some of their creative dreams that they've never been able to before. So I went full steam ahead, and I pretty much spent my entire time that I've been home creating this course. So I launched it for enrollment maybe 3 weeks ago, and we had 500 students sign up. And it's been pretty phenomenal, because I had to pivot from someone who was known as a product-based business to an educator really fast. Mm-hmm. And I spent 3 months probably just building lead magnets with my mailing list to try to pivot as someone who had a lot of experience, because I've tried so many different things as a creative. I mean, I've done practically everything you can possibly think of to do to make money as a creative. I've done craft shows, I've taught, I've traveled, I've done speaking engagements, I've done work for hire, I've done it all. So I was like, I have a lot of things I can offer. So I spent months just creating kind of free opt-ins with my newsletter to be like, hey, get my free guide with 10 tips for selling your artwork online, sign up here. And I doubled my newsletter in the course of a few months. So I went from 9,000 subscribers to 21,000 subscribers on my news list in a matter of a few months. And that growth was a targeted audience for my ideal customer, a creative who is ready to take a chance and go after their creative career, but just needed someone to really show them the way. So that's what I did, frankly. Yeah, long-winded. That's what I did.
You going to stick with that even if the world begins to return to normal? Is that still going to be a core offering that you'll have? Because it sounds like it was wildly successful.
It was wildly successful, and it's going to be my core course offering that I'm only going to offer once a year. So I teach it in a semi-live format. So every week I release video modules for that week's lesson that I have filmed and edited. I have a workbook to go with it. I've pretty much gotten the who's who of people in the creative industry to come be special guests, and we do live Q&As with them. I've really tried to beef this up to be not only instructive, but encouraging and a little bit aspirational, I guess you could say. So it was so successful. I'll put it into perspective. I've been in business for years. I was in scale up. I never had like $1 million business. You know, it was like a slow and steady growth. In fact, Jeff, I sat down with you to do like growth projections of how long it would take me to actually get to $1 million. And it was going to take a really long time for me to get there based on my growth trend. I think I was growing like 13% a year, which isn't bad, you know, but so last year we did a little over $400,000 in revenue as a business. And I did more than that in 1 week with the launch of my course, you know?
Wow.
So we're going to stick with it and hopefully grow it into more and then launch a membership on the back end of it, like a monthly membership for continued guidance and growing your creative career. So it's kind of like a back-end membership, but I'm really excited. I'm hoping that we get a nice, strong conversion from students in the course who want to continue with like monthly coaching, I guess you could say, in a group format. Yeah.
That could be the long tail of the business. So you kind of capture them and and you're creating community, essentially. They're going to stay with you as part of that community. That's fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you. That's probably been the best part of it, has been the community building. I'm really thrilled with it. So thank you so much.
You know, the interesting thing about the pandemic is all of us, I think I can say that, all of us who had any kind of online presence previously had on the agenda somewhere, we need to do more digital content, we need to do more webinars, we need to have more stuff. And it took this sort of into the world apocalyptic craziness that we've been going through to push a bunch of us over the edge to just go ahead and do it, because we had no choice. You had to if you wanted to reach your audience. And my sense is that it could easily become the vast majority of the business as you go forward in terms of revenue generation, because you're going to build a larger and larger following. I think people are going to eat the stuff up that you have, even more so than they are today. That's really exciting. Adversity leads to opportunity if you're just ready to say yes to it, is what I would say.
I absolutely agree. I feel like everything that I've experienced up to this point was a great teacher for me. And, I've been in the industry of like trying to make it as an illustrator, and to some degree, like success, like I was already in a place where a lot of illustrators would think, oh, this is what it looks like to be a successful illustrator. But then in terms of having a company with employees where I want to have continued growth, and also thinking like long-term about what I want to be doing like a decade from now, teaching in this way seems really palatable. Do you know what I mean? I hustle really hard as it is as someone who produces and distributes products all over the world. So it'd be a really nice kind of long game, but transition into doing this maybe full time. So
and you can reach such a large audience by doing it. It's really cool.
Thank you. I've been really happy with it, and it kind of holding my breath the whole time. Do you know what I mean? Like, is this going to work? Is this going to work? I mean, I'm doing all the work. Is this going to actually happen? And it has. So I'm really happy about it. Thanks.
That's super.
And you mentioned your team. What does your team look like? What do you have? Artists? What is your team comprised of?
I'm still the sole illustrator for my company, although I'm thinking of bringing on a junior illustrator next year to help us with a little bit of product development. It's just because I'm having to figure out the best use of my personal time right now. I have a special projects coordinator who was doing all of our in-person workshops, that I transitioned her to be my assistant whenever COVID-19 happened, essentially. I've pivoted everybody around. I've not laid off anybody. In fact, I hired a new employee in the middle of all of this pandemic, which has been kind of nuts. I have someone who does all of our fulfillment. I have 2 people who do all of our product assembly. I have a wholesale coordinator. I have a customer service manager. So they're more like, we've promoted her. She's like more of a community manager than customer service, because we've grown such a more in-depth online community. And then I have several people that I work with on contract basis for various things that I need for my business, with accounting and legal things that I need help with, and even things like sewing quilts. I haven't even mentioned this, but a huge part of my business is fabric in the quilting world. And like, that's something I have to do. I have to get quilts made in the middle of all this. So yeah, I work with a lot of different people.
Stacie, I need your help with something.
Yes.
So I'm not an artist. If I tried drawing a house, you'd think it looked like a tree. And something that I saw on your website that I thought was pretty cool was you want to build something that's timeless, but also pulls at the heartstrings of people, that makes them feel young again. What process do you go through to get to that type of good?
Oh gosh, what do I do? Okay, we talk about this a lot actually in the class that I'm teaching. It's about your brand story, and it's about what makes your signature style, what makes you cohesive, right? So there are a couple of things that I do whenever I'm making, like, let's say animal illustrations that will go in a nursery. I know that my ideal client is not going to want something so incredibly trendy that they're going to look back and kind of regret having used it in their child's nursery. So I like to take a lot of my inspiration from like classic children's books. And so I look at the way those animals are illustrated. I don't have a lot of like smiling animals. They're all kind of somber. I put a lot of detail, somber but sweet. I have a really unified color palette that I use in all of my work. It's a little bit desaturated, and I feel like it lends itself to a timelessness. And my background in college was really focused on printmaking. So I use a lot of pen and ink detail in my artwork, where it feels like a little bit of a callback to a classic pen and ink drawing maybe that you're used to. So that's where I get my inspiration from the artwork. And then whenever I'm bringing it to product, that's whenever I'm thinking a lot about like functionality. I'm thinking about like, is this an item that I want to keep in my child's room for years and years? Is this like, we'll talk about stockings. Last year I produced overseas a bunch of beautifully embroidered Gingiber Christmas stockings. And the idea was that they're heirloom quality. You know, the colors were soft and desaturated, a little bit metallic. And it was the type of item that maybe this child could grow up with and use and hand down to their own child someday. So that's when I'm talking about a little bit timeless and a little bit something that kind of pulls at your heartstrings.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Thanks.
And as you, move to work more on the classes and coursework, and, you talked about the possibility of bringing someone on as an artist in the future, just to help determine, where you're spending your time. How do you plan on, I guess, managing that quality of art and just making sure that everything is to the caliber that you want it?
Absolutely. Well, I'm already the creative director for my business, but I'm just my own creative director. I just have to edit myself a lot. So I guess it's going to be a lot of what I already do with my other employees, which is giving direction and giving clear like inspiration and guidelines. So, I kind of have a style guide already that I use throughout my business. So when I'm putting out work, I know there are certain parameters that I've created for myself to keep things feeling cohesive, regardless of the subject matter. So I think I'm going to have to, fingers crossed, get really lucky interviewing some very talented illustrators whose body of work will complement mine already, but someone who will be easy to teach and instruct a little bit. And it's just a lot of communication, I'm hoping. I'm looking at other businesses that have this model already as a bit of a inspiration for how I can utilize this in my own business. So, yeah.
Well, as you think about the growth trajectory, and you mentioned it early on, you said, 5 years or 10 years down the road, you've got this new sort of offering that was maybe accelerated by virtue of what's happening today. What do you want the business to look like 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road in terms of people and impact and all those other ways you describe a vision?
Well, my biggest goal with all of my art, it's to encourage people. It's to encourage people that they can have and visualize this big, amazing life that they've always wanted and that they can get there. But sometimes it feels really impossible. We have these big dreams, right? I think about myself just as an illustrator and what my dreams look like over the years and what it felt like every time I actually achieved one of those milestones. The first time I got to work with like a dream client, or the first time someone shared my work on social media and they were maybe a prominent like celebrity or something, or the first time I was able to pay myself substantially as a small business owner. Those are the things that kind of give me wings, I guess you could say. That sounds cheesy, but it made me feel like, oh my gosh, I can do this. Like I have something to offer. And I want to help other creatives feel that success. And creative businesses, there's no one size fits all. Like that's what I really feel like. Everyone has to forge their own creative path. I mean, I'm not instructing everyone who takes my class that the key to success is to do a million billion different things like I've tried out and exhaust yourself and do that. No, I want everyone to find their creative why, their voice, and find a way to make an impact with the world, with their own work. And so when I'm talking about what I want to do, I want to empower other creatives to find their why and to actually pay themselves because of the work that they're doing. There's this, starving artist mentality that it's impossible to make money. But I think if you're strategic, there's a lot of different ways to create revenue. So one of the things I talk about is leverage your art across all these different revenue streams. And I have several revenue streams, and that's a big part of what I'm teaching people. So what I want is that for other people. And what I want for me and my business is, I don't know size-wise how many more employees I would bring on. I want to just keep hiring the best people I can find to take things off my plate and make things better. So my community manager that I just hired, she is already enhancing our business in ways I never could have on my own. And for what I want personally is I just want stability in my life and for my family. That's what I want to model. I have 3 children. I have a very supportive husband, and I'm just excited that maybe they're going to grow up in a household where things are going to feel financially stable, which is really hard to come by sometimes. And maybe they're going to go after their own dreams like this too someday. So that's what I want.
That's a pretty good answer. Is there a book in the offing somewhere? Are you going to write? I mean, this sounds like it could be a pretty interesting book.
Well, part of this workbook that I'm actually making for each module, my husband was like proofreading it for me. He's like, Stacie, this could be a book. And so that's something that's in my mind. I have a gift book coming out with the publisher in September with Andrews McMeel Publishing. And it's a book actually along the same lines. It's called Give Yourself Margin. And it's the idea that to live a fully creative life, you have to give yourself the space to explore what a fulfilling creative life looks like for you. So that's a gift book that's releasing in September. And it hasn't, trust me, it's crossed my mind that maybe I'm going to pitch this to my literary agent as some kind of book. It's definitely come up in my head. So.
And for good reason. It sounds like it could be something else where you'd have an even greater impact, get to even more people, a lasting kind of an impact.
I hope so. Well, honestly, I'm really happy with what's happening right now, and I don't know what's in store, but I really like to visualize like what's possible and then kind of chase after it. So who knows? I need to sit down and set some new goals, I guess.
So you're saying the illustrator is able to illustrate the vision that you want to pursue. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Oh,
Why
yeah.
not? You can draw that future picture. That's great.
Thank you.
Jeff, sounds like you're going to write the foreword to the book.
I think I could do it. I'm ready. It's pretty inspiring. It's a great entrepreneurial story. You know, there's been lots of discussions in our region about how people can be successful in creating art as a business that will sustain the things you love to do, can sustain you, and you can build more than just a job. You can create a business that sustains not just you but other people. And so there's only a few examples of people who have done that well, and you're definitely one of them. So it's pretty exciting. It's amazing to watch, actually.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Not to like suck up or anything, but I feel really lucky that I got to work with you all those years ago, because frankly, when I met you in the Scale Up program, I was on the verge of possibly shutting everything down. I'm not going to lie. because I had hit kind of a block in my career. I couldn't figure out a way forward. And working with you all over those months, it helped me to really establish kind of a business acumen that I didn't have previously to that. And it gave me some structure that I needed for my business. And ever since then, I've honestly felt like I've been able to grow and grow in a sustainable way. It was a lot less of a crapshoot, just throwing things against the wall to see what would stick, and a much more focused, measured approach to my business. So that was honestly a game changer for me. So.
Well, that was nice to say. Unsolicited, but we're going to put that on continuous loop.
This is going to be on all our promos.
Yeah, absolutely.
For this
Thank you so much.
Stacie, I can't believe we've gotten this far into the podcast without asking about the name and the meaning behind it.
Yeah. So my business is called Gingiber, and this is, okay, the story behind this is that the simplest solution is always the best solution when it comes to making decisions for my business. So when I was in college or during university, I had to create a branding project where I branded myself as a brand. This was before Instagram and social media, and everyone was already a brand, but that was the project. I had to create a self-branded magazine all about myself. And I opened a Latin dictionary, and I found this old word for ginger called gingiber. And I was a typography nerd. I liked all those G's in the lowercase. And I just thought it was really quippy and cute. So I created an entire branding project in college. So then I put it away, got married, lived my life. And then I decided to start my business. And I went to go open my website. And honestly, I didn't feel like designing anything new and rebranding. So I just stole all the branding from my college project. I plugged it in, and no one else had a business called Gingiber. And so now it's trademarked. So I just had to renew my trademark recently. And so that's my business. It's Gingiber. It doesn't pigeonhole me. No one knows what it means. Everyone has to ask how to say it. If I'd known back then that I was building kind of a company that was going to last, I don't know if I would have used it as my name, but now it feels peppy. And our tagline is zest for your nest. So the goal of Gingiber is to add some zest to your nest. And it feels kind of like it's coming full circle. I really like it. So.
Oh, that's great. And it's interesting. The best names, and you see this, the best names are the names that are not necessarily descriptive, but that are memorable and that are difficult to copy. I mean, that's a good one. That's a good one. It meant something to you. Absolutely. Well, the way we like to land the plane typically on the podcast is we ask the difficult question of, if you knew when you started what you know now, what advice would your later self give your younger self? What would you, if you could go back in time, what would you tell yourself 5-6 years ago when you were in the early days of the business?
Oh, that's funny, because I've been asking all of our guests in my class, the special guests, the same question. I've never thought about how to answer this myself. That's great. I would probably tell myself that you have something to offer, and that if you keep showing up and keep doing the work and stay the course, that it's going to matter and it's going to mean something. I think that's the big issue whenever you're starting a business. Sometimes you don't have proof of concept for a while. Sometimes you don't see the fruit of your work for a while. So it's really easy to want to throw in the towel and give up, right? And especially when you make a lot of mistakes on the way, when you're kind of self-taught and all you're remembering are your failures and the successes don't feel as evident. So I would tell my younger self to stick with it and to remember that, like, everything that you're going to set out to do, you're going to do it to the best of your ability. And you're going to kick some major butt and just keep at it. Is that a good answer? No, that's really humble. Just to keep going and to just ignore the self-doubt, and that you're pretty much going to create your own path. The path that you're going to follow doesn't exist yet. You are going to carve out your own creative, successful path. So just keep going. So.
No, that's a great answer. And if the audience, and we do reach something like 91 countries, depending upon the podcast now. Now, we may only have 1 or 2 people in a lot of those places that listen. But if those folks around the world want to learn more about what you're doing, what's the best way for them to find you?
The best place to find me is my website, gingiber.com. Gingiber. It's ginger with an ib in the middle. Does that help? And on that website, I talk about everything I do, the products that I sell, the partnerships I've had with licensing clients, the education that I offer, and even the studio that we have here in Springdale, Arkansas, that's currently closed to the public. So that's the best place to find me, or on social media. I'm on Instagram, Gingiber. So
awesome. Stacie, thank you so much for coming on with us today. It was great catching up, and it's just super inspiring to see what you're up to these days. So congratulations on all the success.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Stacie.
We'll see ya.